Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, 27-year veteran of the NYPD. These serial killer cases are just, you know, they're so savage, but yet they are so interesting. They are just amazingly interesting. And here's a case of an over-the-road truck driver who happens to be 73 years old, who, based on DNA hits, gets arrested for 3 murders that occurred 47 years ago. 47 years ago, he's accused of killing these 3 women who happened to be escorts: Kimberly Fritz, Velvet Sanchez, and Lorraine Rodriguez. You see the thumbnail up on the screen. And DNA nails this trucker, a serial killer now known as Warren Luther Alexander. And there's no better, probably, profession for a serial killer than an over-the-road trucker, because he's traveling from town to town. He's traveling all over, well, in this case, in California. And it turns out that Warren Alexander lived in Oxnard in the late 1950s and 1960s and attended elementary school, middle school, and first 2 years of high school in Oxnard. He worked as an electrician with the U.S. Marine Corps and returned to Oxnard in the 1970s through the 1990s, and he was a long-haul, cross-country truck driver. Scary, right? Scary. But when we think about the technology now, the CODIS database, and I talk about this all the time of anyone who's new to watching this show. CODIS stands for Combined DNA Index System, which is collected and maintained by the FBI. It is a national database. And there's 2 categories, and I have to teach you guys this because it's important to the show. There's 2 categories of DNA in CODIS. One is known as forensic DNA. And that is simply DNA from crime scenes or even victims that are unidentified. The DNA from these crime scenes are unidentified. So it goes into CODIS. The second category of DNA in CODIS is offender DNA. People that are arrested for felonies and certain misdemeanors, their DNA is taken from them. They have to be actually convicted, taken from them when they're in the system. So that's offender. And this defendant, Warren Alexander, his DNA was in CODIS based on forensic DNA. So it was unidentified DNA. So at some point, his DNA got submitted to CODIS, and there were 4 hits, 1 in North Carolina and 3 in California. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight on tonight's show. So hold on to your hats, hold on to your loved ones, hold on to your cup of coffee, hold on to your pets. You're about to enter true crime from a police perspective. You're about to enter the off-the-cuff zone, the police off-the-cuff zone. There has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped at 10th and Ranch by Collider.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger. It's been almost 50 years after 3 women were strangled in Ventura County. Cold case investigators this Thursday said they identified a man suspected of the serial killings. Through modern DNA technology and increasingly advanced data sharing across law enforcement agencies, homicide detectives were able to connect the dots on Warren Luther Alexander, 73 years old, who was extradited this week from North Carolina, where he's awaiting prosecution in a cold case killing from 1992 of this woman you see on the screen. So that is what he was awaiting trial for in North Carolina. We believe there may be additional victims both locally and in other states. Ventura County District Attorney Eric Nasarenko said when he announced Thursday morning that his office had filed 3 counts of first-degree murder against Alexander. This is an ongoing investigation and we'll continue to pursue all leads that become available. This is not closed in any way. Alexander, who initially was a cab driver and a long-haul cross-country truck driver, is suspected of killing Kimberly Carol Fritz. I'll put their pictures up on the screen. Kimberly Carol Fritz, Velvet Ann Sanchez, and Lorraine Ann Rodriguez in 1977 in a series of horrific slayings that had stumped detectives. Fritz was 18, was found dead in a motel in Port Unemi on May 29, 1977. Sanchez, 31, was discovered in Oxon Motel that year on September 9th. Both had been strangled with their undergarments. Months later, in December, Rodriguez's body was found dumped on Laguna Road in the Oxnard Plain area. Her cause of death was also strangulation, and she was just 21 years old at the time. There's the 3 victims from Ventura County from their pictures in 47 years ago, 1997. Very interesting case, and the potentiality in this case that there could be many, many more victims of this serial killer is a very, very real possibility. And that's one of the reasons we want to cover this case, get in at the ground level and show you all of the work that went into this and show you, as we have with Rex Schumann, the accused serial killer for Gilgo Beach, some of the similarities in the profiles of serial killers. And to join me tonight is retired NYPD Sergeant, professor at Albertus Magnus College, attorney. Welcome to the show, Professor Mike Geary. Welcome, Mike.
Hey, William. Good afternoon. Good to see you. Welcome, everyone.
That's very formal calling me William, but that's okay. That's my baptized name. Anyway, Mike, so interesting. And the fact that what is really one of the most important things to us, and us as not just former law enforcement, but as citizens, is that the science that nailed this savage, right? There he is getting off the jet in California to answer for the murders of these 3 women who you see in the thumbnails up on the screen. I would be interested to know more about his personality, more about his personal life. Who is this guy, other than what he did for a living, which made him gave him the cover to be a serial killer? Your thoughts, Mike?
Billy, you nailed it on the head when you talked about the serial killer being a long-haul truck driver. That's I hate to say it, that's a fantastic occupation, because usually in killings, homicides, you, Phil, and me, you're always thinking about, okay, who's the person? Who are they? What do they do? Who's closest to them? What are their motives? There's usually a motive, the why. Why does this happen? But when you have a killings like this from 1977, and there's no motive because the person doesn't really know the person. They don't appear any other time in their lives. Nobody, no relatives know about them. There's no friends. There's nothing really to connect them, except in this case, a tryst in a motel room or something like that, or in a lover's lane. That's all you have. And so that person then is really free to keep on moving, so long as they don't leave like a fingerprint. That kind of technology back then in 1977, they're free to move on. And that makes them really dangerous. There's no motive and people don't know them, and they haven't left anything. Because back in 1977, what was DNA? I was in high school. DNA, you learn in biology class, deoxyribonucleic acid, and it had something to do with your cells. That's all you knew. So people who left their DNA could be blood, sweat, spit, fecal matter, semen, something like that, in some sort of sexual attack or whatever it happens to be. They never even thought that there would ever be any sort of technology that could catch up to them. And thank God that we have this technology now. But it is really, really wonderful. And hopefully it's expensive to do these sorts of investigations, but hopefully this sort of thing will put him away for other unsolved crimes, give other families closure, because now we're looking at 47 years, 1977. That's ages ago. And now finally, some families at least are getting some closure. They may not get satisfaction, but at least they get closure in this. So it's a wonderful thing.
Absolutely. You know, I was just looking at someone's comment. Now I lost it. It was asking someone, I don't know if they were asking us, do I want to know more about the locations, or that they know more about the locations? What we do know about the locations is that these women that I put up on the screen, they were sex workers, as in the Gilgo Beach cases. Two of the locations, I believe, were hotel rooms. I don't know about the third one. But that's the relationship of this killer. And perhaps, as in most serial killers, as with our expert that we've had on a couple of times, Dr. Joni Johnston, who is also from California, I'm sure she's all over this case. She says most of the time they are psychosexual sadistic killers. So we'll look into some of the ways that he killed these women. We'll see there's some commonalities. In 1977, they put together some of these patternable things, and they were ready to say that it looked like it was the same guy. Let me play this from WABC in California. We'll put this up on the screen. Oops. Oops. Well, we got this. There we go. You know, I think I got to put my earbuds on because I'm hearing a little bit of feedback here. Okay. There we go.
Okay.
Been suspected of several murders in Ventura County back in 1977. 73-year-old Warren Luther Alexander is charged with 3 counts of murder in a cold case involving 3 women who were strangled to death in Oxnard and unincorporated Ventura County. Alexander was in custody in North Carolina facing a separate murder charge and was extradited to Ventura. The Ventura District Attorney's Office says it was a joint law enforcement effort that made it possible to find justice in this case.
They never gave up seeking justice for these 3 victims, their loved ones, and their families. Just because a case has gone cold does not mean it should ever be forgotten.
Due to advancements in technology, Alexander was linked to the murders through DNA. Alexander is being held in Ventura County Jail without bail.
Hello, I'm Mark Brown. Get more.
So interesting. They don't tell us anywhere in these reports that his DNA obviously was in CODIS, but they don't say how the comparison was made, because the DNA was in CODIS as a forensic match. So Alexander, who was a cab driver and a long-haul cross-country truck driver, is suspected of killing Kimberly Carol Fritz, Velvet Ann Sanchez, and Lorraine Ann Rodriguez in 1977 in a series of horrific slayings that stumped detectives for a long time. Fritz was 18, found dead in a motel in Port Unemi on May 29, 1977. Sanchez, 31, was discovered in an Oxford motel that year on September 9th. Both had been strangled with their undergarments. Months later, in late December, Rodriguez's body was found dumped on Laguna Road in the Oxford Plain area. Her cause of death was also strangulation. She was 21 years old. So there is some commonalities here in regards to the patternable way, strangling them with their undergarments. That goes with the psychosexual, sadistic nature of most serial killers, Mike.
Yeah, Billy, and being a sex worker is probably the most dangerous profession that there is, because you're always out there in the evening. You're in lonely, quiet places. You've got a lot of people who are perverts out there. You don't know who these people are. You don't know where you're going. You're just trusting your instinct. Yeah, girls can talk and they can say, look out for this guy, look out for that guy. But I used to see them in the 4-6 precinct, and you just ask them if you ever talk to them, like, yeah, as you're driving by, you wave, be careful. That's all. Just be careful, because they see a lot. They're actually excellent witnesses because they see a lot. They pay attention, but they are out there and they are prey for any sick pervert like this guy, like Mr. Alexander, who may have some real sick ideas about what to do. He may have a lot of aggression towards women, and who better to take it out on someone who probably is much smaller than you are, and there's no previous relationships. Nobody can say, I wonder who hurt that person. I wonder who killed that person. Do they have an ex-boyfriend? That sort of thing. There's no real lasting relationship. They are the easiest targets. And we see this with serial offenders a lot, is they look for the sex workers. And so they makes them very vulnerable. So there's probably an underlying anger towards women that these people have. And that's part of their MO, is to, assault them and strangle them, and to use their own underwear. And that's really his MO. And that's why I think they kind of knew, even way back in 1977, they didn't know who Mr. Alexander was at the time. He was unidentified, but they knew that these 3 homicides, murders that took place over the course of like 5 months or 7 months in 1977 must have been related. So at least they knew that, but they didn't have the technology at the time, sadly, but it caught up to them, thankfully.
Patricia Siebold, I'd love to know the details on how they caught this guy. Who would think to try to match his DNA with anybody after 47 years? Fascinating. Patricia, what his DNA was in CODIS as a forensic DNA, unidentified. So it was unidentified. At some point, and I think it possibly in North Carolina, and they're not saying this, but he was on trial for a murder from 1992. So then his DNA was put into CODIS, and lo and behold, pops 3 matches in Ventura, California. So we don't know specifically, was it the arrest for the 1992? Like, we would like to know, what was the probable cause they had for the 1992 murder? How did they compare his DNA to that? Did they get it surreptitiously? Did they have some other evidence? That's what no one has put out there yet. But as far as the California murders, his DNA was in CODIS as forensic DNA, and that's how they matched that. Unbelievable. Talking with JoJo sounds like Lisk. You're right. It does, doesn't it?
Yes.
It's good to have all of these, what you've learned from the Lisk case, and apply it now to this, because it comes in handy. Pauline Buckles, no social life, lonely, maybe angry. I bet you all of those things. And also a psychosexual, sadistic killer. There's no doubt in my mind that he's that. With H, but why kill? He was a truck driver. Not like anyone's going to run back and tell his family he liked ladies of the night. With H, it's more than that. It's his psycho-sadistical profile, which makes him kill, which now makes him a serial killer. And I would bet, based on his modus operandi, that he's got many more bodies on him that they haven't found yet. And the investigation is really just beginning, and they're going to find, I would guarantee they're going to find more bodies on this guy. With H, no one goes into sex work because they want to. They have to. The stigma needs to go away. These women are only trying to take care of their families. With H, we never disparage these women, but it does put you in a very dangerous position dealing with psychos out there, and it makes it more likely that you could become a victim of a murder if you are a sex worker. And that's all we're saying. We're not putting down these women at all. Girl Friday, Lacuna Road was out further in a desolate area, but the 3 roads also connect. Thank you, Girl Friday. We don't obviously know the air of Laguna, Florida. Excuse me, California. I'm thinking Florida. I think I want to go back to Florida soon. So yes, it's these areas. He's driving a truck. He has access to all of these things, truck stops, hotels. He knows where the ladies of the night work. He knows all these things. Let me play this from KCL News in Los Angeles.
4 decades in the making, a suspected serial killer is in custody in Ventura County. He's charged with the murders of 3 women in the 1970s. He was just extradited from North Carolina, where he's accused of another murder. And KCAL's Elise Martinez has more now on how authorities cracked this case.
For Warren Luther Alexander, once a fugitive from justice, the day of reckoning in Ventura County has finally arrived.
Accused serial killer Warren Luther Alexander is back in Ventura County, 47 years after the gruesome murders of 3 women.
Just because a case has gone cold does not mean it should ever be forgotten.
Ventura County DA Eric Nazarenko says the 73-year-old is linked to the 1977 strangulation murders of 18-year-old Kimberly Carol Fritz, 31-year-old Velvet Ann Sanchez, and 21-year-old Lorraine Ann Rodriguez. The victims were all sex workers who frequented local motels. Alexander's DNA was in the national database in connection to a 1992 strangulation murder in North Carolina, where he is still awaiting trial. In 2006, detectives uploaded DNA evidence collected from the murder scenes into the nationwide DNA database and found no match. They tried again last year.
Last year in 2023, however, a breakthrough emerged. Once again, detectives with the cold case unit on behalf of the Ventura County Sheriff's Department uploaded crucial DNA evidence into that nationwide DNA database. And in this case, a match occurred.
The case is far from over. The DA believes there are more victims because Alexander was a cross-country truck driver. But for now, his arrest bringing closure to the victims' families.
While we cannot bring back Kimberly, Velvet, and Lorraine, we can make sure that the person accused of these horrific crimes faces in Ventura County the full weight and force of the law.
So, really, really interesting case. With H, I'm from the chat. Yes, you guys are being very respectful. What I meant is that when these murders happened, I'm sure because of their line of work, that finding who did it was not a huge priority. I like to think that detectives don't, moralize about what someone does for a living, and that each murder is given the attention that the murder of a human being deserves. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I'm just saying I would be, upset to hear that. That was also in the Gilgo Beach cases. That was also, people were accused that they didn't give it the priority it deserved because these women were sex workers. And I hate to hear that, but could there be some truth to that? There could be a possibility of that. But look, it's 47 years later. No one looks happier to solve this than law enforcement, than the people that were involved investigating this. Let's talk about the investigation moving forward. All right, now they have these cases. Of course, the evidence has been preserved. It's amazing to all of us that follow true crime, all of us in the criminal justice field, that evidence is preserved for 47 years. And 47-year-old DNA and 47-year-old blood and 47-year-old potentially hairs to get mitochondrial DNA is preserved and able to nail a defendant for a murder that happened 47 years ago. I think it's just incredible. Mike.
Billy, yeah, just think about it. 1977. What was the science of crime scene back then? Not nearly as sophisticated as it is now. You just hope that they got good diagrams of the rooms. Especially in the hotels, they got motels. They got good pictures. They preserved, not only the evidence that they got obviously his blood off of, but anything else that he may have left behind. Anything from a sock to a tissue. You have no idea. But all those pictures, receipts, whatever they can get, maybe there might be the motel clerk who may have seen him and and describe that person, what they look like back in the day, that sort of thing. It makes it a little difficult because you're thinking of 1977 police procedure and people's memories. And some of these people and some of these detectives are probably, they're all retired, or maybe they've passed away. But you've got all the records. You got the cold case detectives who can go through all that and interpret all that and present that to a jury. So, they'll have one trial for all the cases together in Oxnard, in Ventura County, and that'll be great. And, that is what you want to do, because, you do that, you present it in a way that people can understand. This was a series of killings, a serial killer, one after the other. And if you can connect that to the fact that he may have been working in that specific area back in 1977, if there's any sort of pay receipts, anything from the trucking company, all those little things that can place him actually in May in that area, in December in that area, like in September in that area, then you got him cold. But you got to rely, unfortunately, you can't redo all that little crime scene stuff that was done in 77. You hope that the detectives that did everything preserved the DNA and plus everything else correctly. Fingers crossed.
100%. Leah from the chat. Victims were humans, and it's against the law to kill, so it doesn't matter what the victims' occupations were. Humans are humans in the eyes of God, is what I believe. Leah, you're preaching to the choir. I agree with you 100%. Whit H from the chat. Is there any possible defense that he can use, or is this a slam dunk case? No case is ever a slam dunk. They have DNA evidence matching him up to these deceased women that were strangled. That DNA, how does he explain that? Tough for, a defense attorney, what they can always say, oh, he was with them consensually and he hired them, but he didn't kill them. So it's whether or not a jury believes that. That's, but these women, apparently their families also, they were very close to their families. And I don't know who's left in their family, who's alive to see the closure that the arrest of this man, and hopefully not just close. That's the picture on the left. Warren Luther Alexander is what he looked like in 1977. So an over-the-road truck driver, started out as a cab driver. When we talk about one of the best professions to get away with killing people, that's probably one of them, is that he's working as an over-the-road truck driver. He's passing in and out of different areas all the time. Many over-the-road truck drivers sleep in their truck. They have that back portion of their truck, and they drive through different states, and they're familiar with those areas, and then they move on. So these three women who worked the area of Ventura, California as sex workers, his DNA is matched up to all three of them. And again, he was brought back to California. And now think of the case the detectives have to do now. Try to find out what were his routes back then,
Right.
and is there any computer records, paperwork records that showed where and who he was working, what he was delivering, trucks he was driving, locations he went to, places he visited, people that may remember him, co-workers, and develop some type of profile of this individual, rather than just, jurors want to hear, what has he done since he, I'm pretty sure he's not an over-the-road truck driver anymore. What has he done with his life? Apparently now he is from Diamond Head, Mississippi. So how long ago was he still working? The murder that he got charged with in North Carolina was from 1992. This is the woman who he's accused of murdering, also a strangulation from 1992. And that's the DNA from that case. So that's the case that started this wheel of him getting arrested. This was the catalyst, the arrest on this case from North Carolina. And he's, as you said, he's facing, her name is Nona Cobb, by the way. And her case again was from 1992. Alexander appeared in Ventura County Superior Court on Thursday morning, will face arraignment later this month. And as I just stated, he's from Diamond Head, Mississippi, but authorities noted that he lived in Oxnard in the late 50s and 60s and attended elementary school, middle school, and the first 2 years of high school in Oxnard. He worked as an electrician with the Marine Corps and returned to Oxford in the 70s, authorities said. And from the 70s through the 90s, he was a long-haul cross-country truck driver. So just unbelievable. So the detectives obviously have their work cut out for them in connecting more cases. But what always happens in these cases, how police departments correspond with each other, is something called a teletype message. That's just for law enforcement. Yes, believe it, police departments still have teletype machines. And a message will go out to all the police departments in the whole nation about what they're looking for, modus operandi, description, the fact that his DNA is in CODIS, and this is his modus operandi. And every police department that has a similar case will contact the Ventura County Police Department, the Ventura County District Attorney, and that's how some of these cases could get solved. Mike.
Yeah, Billy, just think about it. You hit on it. The business records are going to be really difficult to get to prove the routes that he was on back in 1977. Just think about 1992. That's 32 years ago. All right. Ms. Nona Cobb's death in North Carolina. How many people have, business records of that they have their own pay stub? Nobody has pay stubs from 1992. Maybe one here, one there that you've lost today. A sock drawer somewhere. But 1977, those companies may not even be in existence anymore. Those trucking companies, depending on which, the size of it, it may have gone bankrupt, may have been bought out. Everything, some stuff may have been digitized, some stuff may have just been thrown out in a recycling bin in the garbage, and that's it. So he may be able to claim that, no, I wasn't there, I was working someplace else. He can say that, but unless he has something to back it up, it's just a claim. But it's going to be difficult for the cops now, those detectives, to really nail him down, because you want something more than DNA. You want to get this guy, as Phil would say, in the box where he can't go left, right, forward, and backwards in front of a jury, and that that he can't disprove any way that he wasn't in that area back in the summer and the fall of 1977. You don't want to give him any wiggle room. So even though you have DNA, you need more than that. You want to make sure that there's no doubting Thomases, no doubters on that jury, because you never know. It just takes one person to say, I'm not so sure about that DNA stuff. You want to have something else. That's going to be difficult for the police to get. They've got their hands full. You're right.
Absolutely. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, real crime stories. If you like real crime, true crime from a police perspective, then you're in the right place. If you want to subscribe to us, that's our address right there. You go on our YouTube, www.youtube.com at Police Off the Cuff, and you hit the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up, hit the like button. If you want to contribute to us financially, we have a Patreon that has 4 different levels, www.patreon.com/Police Off the Cuff. Police Off the Cuff. I can't even talk. Or do you become a YouTube member? We have YouTube channel memberships. They get additional contact with us, additional things that we give our members. And you can join that, www.youtube.com/channel, and become a YouTube channel member. We appreciate all our subscribers, our friends, our fans, and they help this show continue and become, we think, one of the best shows on the internet. Schmitty from the chat, 77 through 92. That's a lot of years to be active in the range we know at this moment. Schmitty, 100%. That's why I said also not just his age, but his profession and how he was able to travel in and out of towns, in and out of states. And I think that profession is probably tailored for what he did. To Tony the Night Owl, I wonder if he had any prior arrests for violence. I wonder also, Tony, they haven't published that whether he did or not. Nina Chandro, good to see you, Nina. Sorry I was late here. I got a little distracted. That's okay. Welcome to be here. Eric Olson, we had 74 open active homicide cases at the end of June, not including undetermined cold cases, other shootings, knifings, hit and runs, etc. I don't know, Erica, where you're referring to, what state, but it's good to know. I want to play this. Dr. Joni Johnson, who's a serial killer expert, was on my show a few months ago, and she was specifically talking about Rex Heuermann, the Long Island serial killer, the alleged Long Island serial killer. And what she spoke about and what she's going to talk about here is something called staging, MO, and signature. And apparently this guy, Warren Alexander, staged the bodies in a certain way and was very specific with his modus operandi. So let me play a little bit of Dr. Joni Johnson. And again, this was from a previous Police Off the Cuff show. So don't think she's live. This is from a previous show. And sex offenders in prisons. MO, modus operandi, which for our folks that are not familiar with Latin, I'm fluent in Latin. I know MO, modus operandi, which is simply method of operation. And then, doctor, if you would explain signature. And he has two very distinct modus operandi and signatures. And explain, please, Dr. Johnson, Dr. Joni. It's like being in your class. Please, Dr. Johnson.
Joni.
Please, Dr. Joni. I pay $50,000 a year to study with you. Would you please explain the difference between modus operandi and signature?
Well, you really did a great introduction for there. In other words, an MO is what they actually physically do to commit the crime, the way they do that. And the signature is not, it's more for psychological reasons. So, I may strangle somebody because to overpower them. That would be perhaps part of an MO. But if I'm leaving that person with a red ribbon tied around their neck every time I kill them, or I'm stuffing a sock in their mouth, that is not a part of a crime. That is not necessarily hurting that person. It's not serving any kind of physical purpose. But for me, as the killer, it may have a very significant psychological meaning. And that's what a signature is. And it can be anything from laying a body out in a certain way, binding them in a certain way. I mean, your imagination can run wild in terms of what a signature can be. But it's something that's added to a crime scene or taken away from a crime scene that has a personal meaning and serves some kind of psychological meaning to that perpetrator.
Dr. Joni, I always found that perpetrators didn't like to deviate from their modus operandi. That was what made them comfortable, as you just said. And one of the signature things, I think, in this case with Rex Heuermann was the burlap, and they described it as like a camouflage type bag that he used to bind the victims. So that is definitely a signature of this defendant. Phil, what do you think?
Well, the burlap bag turned out to.
I don't want to get that. They were talking about the Rex Heuermann case, but Dr. Joni very specifically talks about modus operandi and signature. And this guy had a very specific signature that he staged the bodies in a certain way after he killed them. And they didn't reveal what that was. But it always seems to go back to the psychosexual sadistic part of these killers, of these serial killers, as to why they stage the body in a certain way.
Yeah, Billy, we see this with this guy, Alexander, and we know at least two of the homicides in Ventura County. He strangled them with their own underwear. He could have strangled them with his hands. He could have, choked them with a pillow, something like that, whatever. But he did it with the underwear tied around their neck. So that shows, extreme violence, and it's part of that. That is, you may consider the underwear his signature because it's slightly different. It wasn't necessary to accomplish the death, but he did it in a particular way. So he may not have realized it, maybe in his anger, maybe in his aggression, maybe in his perversion, but by doing that in at least two cases, you now have a pattern. And when you have a pattern, the cops know we're looking for a serial killer. We're not looking for two sex workers who were killed in a slightly similar fashion in different areas of the county. No, we got two who were killed within a couple of months, and they were killed in a very, very like manner. And the strangulation with the underwear around the neck. Now they know serial killer. We're not two people we're looking for. we're looking for one person. And then you start to look at some of the others that may be similar. And so therefore it was actually a weakness, because once you do that, you start connecting him. So in other states now, if there's any sort of strangulation cases, cold cases, where there's a sex worker from back in the 70s or the early 80s or whatever, 30 years ago, and she was strangled with underwear around her neck, you may be able to say, you know what? Let's go back and look at that case. Let's reopen everything. Let's upload, if we haven't done already, any of the blood or saliva or semen that we have, load it up into CODIS and see if we can get a hit. That's a fantastic thing. Just one small little thing like that can open up a whole floodgate to solving a whole number of cases. So keep our fingers crossed about that.
You know, Mike, I think that they have a fourth body that they're looking at that potentially could be tied to Warren Alexander, this over-the-road truck driver who lived in Oxnard, Ventura County. And they're looking at that, as they will be in all other parts of California. That's why I said it's important they find out what was his route. Where was he driving? First of all, the company he worked for. Let's hope that they took meticulous records and they could show each route he took when he took over the road, whatever he was hauling, and the states and the counties and the cities that he went through. And then, of course, that needs to be published and sent out on a teletype message to all police departments across, specifically targeting those areas. But yet, I think this teletype message really should go out to all police departments across the nation, with emphasis, of course, on Ventura County, California, and, of course, North Carolina. And he was from Diamond Head, Mississippi. Now, a thing that's not unusual for serial killers, they can stop killing for years. They could stop 20, 30. Maybe he didn't. After he retired driving a truck, maybe he stopped killing. You know, that's not unusual. However, it's more likely, I think, that he continued to kill, although he is 73 years old. But that is how this guy got off on whatever his psychosexual hangup was. This is how he satisfied it.
Yeah, think about it. Thank you for bringing that up. Nona Cobb, who was murdered in 1992 in North Carolina, 1992. That's 32 years ago. He would be he'd be like 41 years old back then. He would still be physically able to overpower a woman. Now, he probably, the last couple of years, you get older, you've got all kinds of, problems, physical ailments. You don't have that drive anymore to hurt anybody. But back in the day, he was in his prime of his life, from the 70s to the 90s. And that's it's at least 2.5, maybe 3 decades of prime time where he's driving back and forth all over the country and having the opportunity to make encounters with the sex workers and use them and kill them as his whim depended upon it. And so therefore, he probably did stop when he was doing other shorter routes, but when he was doing long haul routes and he had a lot of time to think about this stuff, I don't know about what kind of family he had, but he had a lot of time to be alone on the road and to plan how to kill someone. So I'm sure there's probably a whole bunch more somewhere from the 70s to the 90s that hopefully now the floodgates will open and we will get some sort of matches. But I would bet my paycheck that these 3 poor ladies here, Miss Fritz, Miss Sanchez, Miss Rodriguez, and Miss Cobb, aren't the only ones. They're already looking at another case from 1975, 2 years earlier, of a lady from also Ventura County named Cassandra Lee Miller. So, it's probably, I would imagine, there could be dozens more out there.
No, 100%. Someone just asked, is there a set number? Here we are, rabbit holes. Is there a set number of killings before it is decided someone is a possible serial killer? Yes, two or more, but they have to be on a different date. It can't be you kill 2 people and it has to be separated by different dates. course, that's the FBI definition, 2 or more. So if you do 2, you're a serial killer. And but again, it has to be on different dates. If you kill 2 people in one day, you're not a serial killer. Yeah, I mean, this is tonight. Tony the Night Owl in his sick mind because they were sex workers and of no importance. To the Night Owl, that could be in his sick mind. You're right. That absolutely could be. And he could have in his mind a hatred for women, which some of these guys do have. They have a hatred. And that's why they target sex workers. And that could be why Rex Uerman, the Long Island serial killer, the alleged Long Island serial killer, that could be why he was. Not just was he targeting them, it appears he was torturing them. And that indicates, as Dr. Joni said, psychosexual sadism. And he got off on that. And this guy could have the same personality, could have the same psychological makeup, that he's a psychosexual sadist. So that's some of the things, and only our serial killer experts that tell us these things. I'm sure Dr. Joni can't wait to interview this guy but again, he's going to go on trial for these 3 murders and potentially a 4th. And, I think the case is open as far as how many more did he possibly do. Let me play this from also ABC News.
In Ventura County nearly 50 years ago. For more on the suspect and what finally led investigators to him, we go live to Port Hueneme and Eyewitness News reporter Josh Haskell. Josh?
Well, I'm standing outside the Marv Inn. It's what used to be the Marv Inn. It's still a motel. It now has a different name. It's where one of the murders took place 47 years ago. For decades, Ventura County law enforcement believed 3 1977 murders were connected, but the cases had gone cold because there wasn't enough evidence to identify a suspect. Thanks to significant advancements in science and technology, all that changed last year.
Just because a case has gone cold does not mean it should ever be forgotten.
May 29, 1977, 18-year-old Kimberly Fritz was found dead in room 18 at the Marv Inn in Port Hueneme. September 8, 1977, 31-year-old Velvet Sanchez was found dead in the Via Motor Court in Oxnard, where she lived. A witness saw her return to the motel with a man. December 27, 1977, 21-year-old Lorraine Rodriguez.
That's so interesting. A witness saw her return to the hotel with a man. My question would be, is that witness still alive? It's 47 years ago. Can that witness, is the witness any use as far as making an ID? Tough to make an ID 47 years later. And if the person did, would it be believable? But there is a witness. So we have, and this guy's got a very specific build. He looked like he was probably always sort of heavy set. That's his picture on the left from 1977. He looks like an angry guy too. I mean, even in his current picture, he looks a little bit angry. Here he is. And I guess, if you're getting arrested for murder, you're not going to have a smiley face on. But interesting that there's a witness. And could that witness possibly identify him? Look, the DNA evidence is very, very strong. But eyewitness evidence with the DNA evidence makes it that much stronger.
Rodriguez's body was found on the bridge on Laguna Road in unincorporated Ventura County. All 3 women died by ligature strangulation. All 3 victims were commercial sex workers and were known to frequent the Plaza Marina shopping center in South Oxnard and nearby motels. On Tuesday of this week, 73-year-old Warren Luther Alexander was extradited from North Carolina to Ventura County to stand trial for the murders of all 3 women.
Last year in 2023, however, a breakthrough emerged. Once again, detectives with the cold case unit on behalf of the Ventura County Sheriff's Department uploaded crucial DNA evidence into that nationwide DNA database. And in this case, a match occurred.
In 2022, Warren Luther Alexander was arrested in North Carolina for the 1992 murder by strangulation of 29-year-old Nona Cobb. He was already in custody.
A lot has changed in Ventura County since the deaths of Kimberly Fritz, Velvet Sanchez, and Lorraine Rodriguez. But what hasn't changed is our commitment to provide justice for the victims and their families.
And authorities believe that there could be other victims locally and in other states.
Hello, I'm
So, you know, someone from the chat just asked, and this is a great question. Why sex? Karen Sorrentino. Let me put you up on the screen. I want to just, this is a great question, and we're here we go. Karen Sorrentino. Why sex workers are they easy targets? Do the killers feel that they have no value to society?
Mm-hmm.
Karen, one of the things in homicide investigation is there's something called your risk of becoming a victim, and there's low, medium, and high risk to becoming a victim of a homicide. Obviously, John Q. Citizen going about his or her business, going about their life, going to work every day, not being involved in any criminal enterprise, not having, there's risk factors also, but so that's John Q. Citizen, Jane Q. Citizen, very low risk to become the victim of a homicide. Start committing crimes. Start taking drugs. Start drinking excessive amounts of alcohol. Your risk to becoming a victim goes up. Now become a sex worker. Your risk of becoming the victim of a murder goes through the roof, because what do we also know about most sex workers? They become drug abusers also, and abusers of alcohol. So there's a three-pronged reason that they become a much higher risk. And all those other reasons you said are the easy targets, 100%. Do the killers feel that they have no value to society? All of those things you said are true. And with the things I just enumerated about low and medium and high risk to becoming a victim. And sex workers are very high risk to become a victim of a murder. Mike?
Yeah, it goes. We talk about this with the students all the time. We talk in a basic criminology class. You look at the lifestyle, your lifestyle and where you live, what you do, your hobbies, how you act, who you hang out with. All of these things affect your liability to be a victim of a crime. Narcotics use, as you said, narcotics use, alcohol, excessive alcohol use, gambling, prostitution, carrying firearms, hanging out with people with nefarious activity, doing nefarious activities, and criminal records, that sort of thing. If you're just a basic, man or woman on the street, and you get up in the morning, go to work, come home, watch TV, raising two kids, going to church on Sundays, your chance of being a victim go way down. Even if you're not living in the greatest of neighborhoods, your chances of victimization go way down, because you're not living a lifestyle that makes you susceptible to criminal activity. But put that person taking high risks with their personal life, living in a high risk neighborhood, and you throw in the alcohol or the narcotic use, and the risk meter goes through the roof. And sex workers, quite often, they're hitting the limit on everything. So therefore they are so vulnerable to any sick person out there who wants to take a piece out of a girl, because he figures that many of them have run away, many of them do not have support systems in place with family, many of them are unknown, the family doesn't know where they are. They could go missing for 30 days, 6 months, and the family may never even report them missing. Nobody might ever think that they're missing, so they can get far away from the crime after they do it, and nobody will discover the body. That's why sex workers are probably the most vulnerable in our society when it comes to horrific crimes like this.
Absolutely. Chell 302 at Alex Johnstown Massacre. It's not victim blaming. It's just the truth. You hit it right on the head. It's just like, look, pitch crack on a corner. Do you think that raises your risk to being a victim of a homicide? 1,000%. You have probably, if you keep doing that, you're probably almost guaranteed you're going to get killed. Almost guaranteed. If you sell drugs on a corner, you're going to, I'm just using an exaggerated evidence of low and medium and high risk to becoming a victim of a homicide. And in no way am I victim blaming. I'm just enumerating what are the high risk professions? Yes, pitch crack on a corner, see how long you live, And being a sex worker happens to be one of those professions that is very, very dangerous and puts your risk of becoming the victim of a murder through the roof. And, again, no victim blaming. When I was in homicide and even anti-crime, we talked to the prostitutes all the time on this. Back then in New York City, there were a lot of street walkers. They were invaluable sources of information. And they knew us, and they knew we 5-0. We were 5-0, and they knew who we were. And we treated them very nicely. And I didn't look down upon them at all. But we're going to be perfectly honest here. Low, medium, high risk of becoming a victim. And being a sex worker puts you in the stratosphere of high risk for becoming a victim. Mike?
Yeah, because who are you going to be dealing with? You're going to be dealing at night on the street with all kinds of crazy perverts. And these are people who are engaging in transactional relationships. You're not going to know who they are ahead of time. You're probably never going to see them again. And you are at high risk for people who are drunk and they're high. And if they want to be aggressive, they're going to be aggressive. And you're going to be in a place where nobody can help you, and you're going to be under someone's complete control. You're going to be very, very vulnerable. And therefore, I hate to say, but you have the word victim written right across your forehead, because it's just up to that person how they're going to treat you. They are in control of the situation. And in this case with Mr. Alexander, it happened several of them happened in motel rooms, and he's in control of the situation. You're not in control of the situation, and you don't know this person. You'll never see them again, perhaps, and you're very vulnerable because again, nobody's going to come to your aid. Nobody's looking for you. There's no support. And that is just the absolute truth about the profession. There's nothing you can do about it. If you look at the Jack the Ripper case back in 1888 in London, he was killing prostitutes. That's why. Why is the Gilgo Beach killer accused of killing women who are prostitutes? Again, the exact same thing. They are the easiest targets for these really sick, demented men who have really terrible anger issues with women. They want to dominate them. They want to beat them. Sometimes they want to kill them. So that's why.
Absolutely. Explore Core from the chat, just listening, but wanted to say thanks for the coverage of this at Police Off the Cuff. Thank you very much. Erica Olson. No, not victim blaming. Facts. It's proven those in that trade are much higher risk than others. 100%. Moonlight View. I stayed many times in that hotel, Casa Villa Mar in Port Unemi. I hope I'm saying that correctly. It's a very nice hotel right across from the base. Mary Jane Garva, maybe this could clear up cases near me in North Carolina. The police have been checking some areas. Okay, good. I hope so too. I hope he gets charged with every single one he's done. DCPNW, we have a serial killer in our city and the victims were all sex workers with drug habits. Yes, easy targets. Illuminating Inc. He does have those dead eyes. Just listening to a therapist saying dead eyes is associated with psychopaths. Well, no doubt. Gail Hurd, I thought he might be Zodiac, but I did the math. He would have been 22 in 1969, a few years too young to be the Zodiac killer. DCPNW, also homeless, which also tends to have high meth use. Yeah, and, abusing alcohol and drugs, it will raise your level also. Emily Parkinson, a lot of the serial killers target sex workers. 100%, Emily. Drug dealers are not victims if they get whacked reins. Well, something, I'm just saying you can argue whether they are or aren't. I'm just saying that profession raises your level of becoming a victim of a murder. Erica Olson, I agree. Sergeant Bill killed, robbed, abused, exposed to drugs. All of these are high risk factors that put you in the, in the rifle scope of getting killed. Some of those areas were very dangerous. We were always told to stay away from there, especially at night. But it wasn't good during the day either. Girl Friday, I'm sure you're talking about the areas of Ventura, California. Hey, Jude, I can't imagine how many victims across the U.S. Yeah, the guy was an over-the-road trucker. So he potentially could have, I don't even want to conjecture on how many victims he could have. Jill Chandler, you guys are the best. Thank you. We love the love too. We love Alex Jonestown Mask, do you have any tips for serial killers hoping to avoid detection from? No, I won't. I don't give tips to serial killers to get away with it. In fact, I hope they all get caught. Sherry Murray, I agree, Professor. You couldn't say it more clearly.
Thank you.
Stacy Jordan, I hope everyone is having an amazing Monday, trying to stay cool in this Alabama heat. Bill, I hope you have a great week. And thank you for keeping us updated on all cases. Stacy Jordan, thank you so much. Much appreciated. I did a video short on this, and we're going to try to stay with this case as it proceeds through the criminal justice system, because it is really, really an interesting case. And, one of the things I just wanted to say, if you're new to this channel and you want to watch more police off the cuff videos, just click on www.youtube.com/@policeoffthecuff, and you'll be right onto our site, and you can binge watch us forever. I think we have over 2,000 videos at this point. We've been doing this for over 5 years now, and we like nothing but making videos. So if you want to go on and binge watch us, that's the address right there. And again, if you're not subscribed, go on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and ring that bell. Mike, I think that we're just about, let me just go to the comments one more time. Misbelieving, thank you for the coverage, Bill and Mike. Misbelieving, thank you for coming by. Shell, too, recently my criminal justice professor was saying we can never really know how many are out there. Shell, you're right. He's right, and you're right, or she's right. We don't know how many are out there. And as we said, being an over-the-road trucker gives you like perfect coverage to do this. Schmitty, binge watching, Bill, laugh out loud. Well, you can binge watch whenever you want. You grab a glass of Cabernet and just binge watch Police Off the Cuff, or whatever your drink of choice is. I don't want to push alcohol. You can drink a seltzer or water, and binge watch Police Off the Cuff. Alex Jonestown, Maxa, I am Sofa King. We Todd did. Pamela Barker, you two professional men, my fave channel, and make the story without filthy language. As a Christian woman, I appreciate it. Well, thank you so much for, I hope all you guys out there that are spreading the love, I hope you're all subscribed. Ko Kehoe, I lean towards bathtub gin. Alex Jonestown's massacre is laughing. John Moore, sex work is horrible, and today with trafficking of women and children in New York City has to be addressed. Even going to a strip club is helping and furthering victimization. John Moore, you're correct. That's absolutely right. I just wanted to say one more thing. Again, this is to binge watch Police Off the Cuff. www.youtube.com/@policeoffthecuff. Mike, your final thoughts.
Everyone just keep faith that this guy is thank God he's going to be facing justice, not only for Nona Cobb in North Carolina, but for all these three girls who were taken. They are God's children. We are all God's children, and we are all worthwhile in his vision. So therefore, he's getting prosecuted to the full extent of the law. He won't be facing the death penalty, even though it's a serial killer. He's a serial killer, supposedly, in California. But being 73, and they want to get these cases done as soon as possible, I'm expecting that they will probably make an offer to his attorney for life behind bars without possibility of parole in California. And then he's still got the case in at least one case now in North Carolina. But fear not, this guy is off the streets. Thank goodness, even though it's justice delayed, at least justice was denied for 47 years. At least it's finally coming. So thank goodness for that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're absolutely correct, Mike. And folks, again, thank you so much for tuning in this afternoon, this early evening. This is Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. Have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you next time.
Great.
One episode just ain't enough.